Welcome to Books and Boulders, the podcast where we take a break from climbing, sit back, and dive into the world of adventure books.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
Yes, welcome back, BB Pod.
Yes,
Another
welcome.
episode.
Yeah, Books and Boulders. Thanks for joining us again. We are again here to chat about Written in the Waters by Tara Roberts. All the WR sounds is like Written in the Waters. By Tara
A little
Roberts.
bit of an alliteration.
But yes, Written in the Waters by Tara Roberts. We read chapters 1 through 3 last week, and this week we are on chapters 4 through 6. So we're really getting into the meat of her journey. If you recall, this book is split up into kind of like 3 sections. So the first section was the descent, or it was just called Descent. Part 2 is called Bottom Time. And so our readings this week take us from the end of part 1 into the beginning of part 2. But yeah, I guess before we dive into it, a quick check-in. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I feel like I said some things last time or a previous time, and I'm flip-flopping. But I am in my outdoor climbing grow era right now. So that's kind of where my head is at. It's just planning, trying to get mentally ready. And I've only been really in my home gym. I have not been to a climbing gym in weeks. If I'm being honest, pretty much since I've been back from my Red River Gorge trip, I have not been in a gym. Although I might go to a gym this week. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just not feeling the gym space right now. And so I really just want to get mentally ready for being outside and touching real rock. And I've just been kind of in my gardening space. So I don't know if I mentioned this, but there's a tree that's been plaguing my garden since I moved into this house in 2020. And it's not so much just because it's dropped acorns, leaves, all the things that I don't actually have to ever deal with, which is why I bought a house that was low maintenance, because I didn't want grass. I didn't want to rake leaves. And that's what I have had to deal with, is raking up leaves and dealing with pests that birth themselves on this tree. And so because they're renovating a playground, they finally decided to cut this tree down, and the tree is finally gone. So I have been very excited because I have more sun, less bugs, and just, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It's just so much better.
Yay. I am very happy for you. Do you have a trip planned soon?
Yes. So I think I said that I was going to move my friend's trip back, and I changed my mind, and I decided I am still going to go in July because I was afraid to leave my plant babies.
Yeah.
But I shortened the trip and decided I'm still going to go just for 3 weeks. And yeah, I just need to get out of here. I really need to not be here.
I hear that.
And so yeah, I'm gonna go. I kind of low-key want to go back again in the fall, which I know sounds kind of crazy. So anybody who wants to sponsor a sister and get her out of the country, let me know. But yeah, I am gonna go. I am gonna be gone in the next month. So yeah, I think in a few episodes I will be recording from a very, very, very different time zone than you. So it'll be really interesting.
Yeah.
Probably gonna need a lot of coffee, and I don't even drink coffee. So
Wow. We'll figure it out.
yeah.
I bet the coffee in France is so good though, it might convert you.
I mean, the funny thing is, like, when I go to places that are good about things, I do those things. So Costa Rica, I drink coffee. Hawaii, I drink coffee. I won't drink coffee here, but so who knows? I might get a little adventurous. We'll see.
Cool.
But how are you?
How am I? I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, I had a nice chill weekend. I was really tired. I stayed up later than I should have Friday night, but it was fun. And yeah, I spent a lot of time resting yesterday. I too am having garden pests. I am
Mm.
having aphids. They're just going crazy on my plants. I've been using diatomaceous earth and I think it's helping, but it's just they populate so quickly. Like it's like
Yeah. Yeah, the
2 days
DE. So
later. Okay.
DE is good for ants,
Okay.
who carry uh the aphids up.
Okay.
But here's
Huh.
the thing. I would tell you if you have some peppermint oil and some like dish soap, put
Yeah.
the peppermint oil and dish soap, like a tablespoon of peppermint oil, um, a teaspoon of or a tablespoon of the soap, a teaspoon. I'll send you my recipe. But
Yeah.
you just need soap, oil, and water. Put that in a spray bottle and then spray the
And
aphids.
that
But
you feel like is more
that,
effective?
yeah, and yeah, that's what
Okay.
I've used before.
Okay. Okay.
It'll kill. It
Cool.
should kill them. Now, typically, you just have to keep like I don't know if you have a sprayer, but if you can rinse the like get the aphids off, spray them. But DE. What have I used? I've used no, I've used borax for ants, not DE.
Okay.
Well, yeah. Well,
We'll chat about
we
this.
gotta have a pest. I have a whole pest notes. I'll just
Yeah.
airdrop that to you, and you
I
can
would appreciate
look at all
it.
my different recipes and what they're for. Cause
Okay.
yeah,
Great.
I haven't dealt
'Cause,
with
yeah, they're driving me
aphids
crazy.
yet. Yeah,
Lucky
this year
you.
I
They
have
are
not.
driving me crazy. Ugh. And it's just
Yeah,
when you see them all, you uncurl a leaf and you're like, wow, why is this leaf not growing? And then you uncurl it and it's just a cluster of like 100
yeah,
aphids and it's disgusting.
yeah,
But
yeah,
anyways, that's what I'm dealing with. But other than that, all is well. And yeah, I'm excited to get into these chapters.
yeah. It's cool, going to Africa, being in Africa. Like it's like now we are in the continent, the motherland.
Yeah,
It's
I
like, I mean, I
know.
guess we're not quite there,
We'll get
but
there though.
that's
By
we're
the end of
getting
this
there.
chapter, we will
Yeah,
be in Africa mentally.
yes, yes. Which, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever been to Africa?
I have not, and this book is like renewing my
Yeah.
determination to figure out how to get there
Yeah.
because, and now it's making me want to go places that I didn't think I wanted to go. I mean, I never had Senegal on my list, but Issa has Senegalese roots, and Issa
Yes.
Rae, for those who think
Uh-huh.
I'm just talking about my cousin or something. But and so I was watching this one thing she did where she went back to Senegal and got immersed in the food culture,
Ooh.
and I was like, I think I need to go to Senegal. Think that's on my
Yeah.
list too now. But
Yeah.
obviously, I want to go to the Rocklands. So this is, yeah, people keep telling me, oh, you have to go here, you have to go here. And I'm like, okay, y'all, this is a whole continent. So I
Yeah.
can't hit everybody up. But I got to figure this out. But it's like,
Yeah.
I don't think I could just go to Africa every year like I can to Europe. So I
Hmm.
don't know. I don't know. But no, it is
Yeah.
on my bucket list very high up.
Cool. Oh, yeah, same. I feel you. I think my goal, I would love to. I mean, there's so many places in Africa I want to visit in general, but I would love to take some sort of ancestry test.
Mm,
And then, check out those places and just see what the people who made me look like. And
yeah.
what the countries that made the people that made me look like. And yeah, so but yeah, we will make it there. Maybe that could be Blackout Fest retreat. Our
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
to the motherland.
2029.
Right. But yeah, cool. Well, let's dive into these chapters. Four. Chapter 4 and 5 are pretty short, so I think we can cruise through those. But really in chapter 4, she's just kind of heading back to Atlanta from her diving with purpose training. And she graduated from that program. So, she's qualified now to kind of like do the scuba diving and work with these teams to do some of this research and documentation. But she still doesn't have any money. So she moved
Hmm.
back in with her mother. As as one might expect, her mother is stoked to have her living with her. She's so
Yeah,
hyped. She's telling all her friends, my daughter's back with me. Yay.
that would be my
Tara,
mom.
yeah, I think
She's
that
so
would be my
happy.
mom too. Tara is a little bit less excited. We love our moms. Tara loves her mom, but I think at her age, it's not what Tara's like in her late 40s at this point. I think she's just kind of like, and she's super excited about the work that she's doing with the DWP. I think she's kind of like itching to like move on and figure out what's next for her. Um, but at this point, she hasn't heard back from her grant application. And I don't remember exactly when she touches down in Atlanta, but it sounds like it's been at least a couple of months. And so in September, she gets a call from her homie Kamal from DWP. And he's like, hey, we're going, not we're trying to go, we are going to
Yeah,
Mozambique to explore the Sao Jose Paquete de Africa.
yeah. I keep trying to figure out how to say that. Piquet, Piquet d'Africa. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to like say it French because that's where I'm at right now. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So
we'll
is
just
what is
call it
this
Sao
Portuguese?
Jose.
Okay, yes,
I
the
think it
San
is
Jose.
Portuguese.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So but they want to explore this slave ship called the San Jose that wrecked, I believe. She'll tell us later on, but it wrecked I think in like the 1700s. And they want to share any findings that they come up with the Makua descendants who live in Mozambique. And so she's super excited about this trip. She's like, I'm going, like I have to go. But she still hasn't gotten any money. She sent out a couple pitches, she sent out some grant applications, and she still hasn't heard back from any of them. So she kind of goes on a walk and she's like, all right, I got to think about how I'm going to do this. It's time for plan D. And
Mhm.
when she heads back, I think she's wanting to start putting things in motion. And as soon as she checks her email, she finds out that she got a grant awarded to her from National Geographic. So yeah, the
Yes.
money came through, and it sounds like she's going. Woo! And that's chapter 4.
Yes.
um, so chapter 5, the check cleared. Okay, National Geographic, don't play about their money.
Clearly, that had to be the best feeling to see those dollars in the bank. Oh,
Yeah, absolutely. And so the check cleared. Her mom is super excited for her, and she's throwing a going away party with some of her family and friends. And her mother's pastor, does a special blessing for her, where he just kind of blesses her journey. It's so interesting. Her mother is a part of this Christian church, but it's like this radicalized Christian church. And we won't go too
yeah.
deep into it, but I'm just curious about the concept. But it kind of spins Christianity on its head. There's no heaven or hell in their particular sect of Christianity, and it just kind of is like this radical revolutionary approach to Christianity. So definitely very curious about that. But we get like a kind of brief glance into Tara's spiritual beliefs, and she talks about how she has engaged in many spiritual practices and how she kind of embraces all of them as a part of her identity and as a means of understanding herself and the universe. Um, she shares a little bit about how she was really hesitant to delve into African American history just because of how painful the story is. And so I think, like many Black
Yeah.
Americans, she has a fairly superficial knowledge of African American history just through media and, kind of like the big names that we are exposed to. So, like,
Film. Yeah. Movies.
yeah. But I think it's just to look too closely at the history is it sounds like it's been really difficult for her. Um, and she kind of recalls something that Dr. Maya Angelou told her when she was interviewing her for Ebony magazine, which is that it's kind of like her chance to pay it forward. And so I think she starts to see this research as an opportunity to pay it forward, and to heal not just like the current generation wounds, or to help heal the current generation's wounds from slavery, systemic racism, kind of like all of that we internalize, which I do believe is very real. Like literally on a cellular level, there's like this whole study of epigenetics and how trauma can like endure for generations. Um, and so she talks about how yeah, this is an opportunity for her to not only heal the current generation's wounds, but to also help heal her ancestors' wounds, and to kind of like reach back and do work that will, yeah, just heal the trauma that her ancestors experienced, which I think is so, yeah, I don't know. I think that's a really powerful thought, and something that like, God, there's I feel like we could go so deep just into a rabbit hole on this, and like what trauma
Yeah,
we
I
carry. Yeah.
that whole thing resonated with me, especially the spirituality part of it and trying to find like what you connect to.
Yeah.
Because I've been all over between the Methodist church and then I dated a Catholic guy for 12 years and just try to figure it's like when you're raised, you're put in a place.
Hmm.
Even if it's Muslim, like you're born into these things and you don't really get the opportunity to sort of find what that means to you. I know a few
Hmm.
years ago I was really trying to figure out like Buddhism and how I feel like that religion would resonate with me more
Hmm.
than any others at
Hmm.
that point, or at least I started trying to read more text and study and finding a temple and like where can I figure out what my own religious beliefs and places and I don't I also avoid the racial trauma. Like,
Hmm.
I've always been like, let's just heal, let's focus on healing and growth. But I do think there has to be a little bit of unearthing to actually overcome the trauma. Because yeah, we have that residual trauma from our fathers and our fathers' fathers or our mothers, and it's so wicked because you don't even realize it. Like we just bury so much pain and so much, and we don't, place it. And it has to have a place. And I don't know if it was here or the next chapter, but her talking about doing this work so that these people can be released, their
Hmm.
souls, that I do
Yeah.
believe like a lot of that can be trapped in those waters and I don't know, it's kind of wild just thinking about the
Yeah.
hundreds of spirits that are underground and whether you believe in that or not is not up for debate necessarily, but
Yeah.
I don't know, that just hit me and just had me
Yeah.
really like go into a place mentally.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting to think about, like, and I think, right, like this is like a huge religious, spiritual conversation of whether or not like our souls live on, and if there's any experience of life after death. But um I don't know. I just think that there's somewhere that she kind of mentions it. Maybe, I don't know again if it's, yeah, in this chapter or the next chapter, but kind of like uh just, oh man. I had the thought, and then it literally, like as I was saying it, like evaporated. But um I don't know. I just think this idea of like, do like, I think she mentioned energy and how there's just like so much. It might have even been a previous chapter, but just the energy and the anguish, and how that like energy is so intense that it has to like carry on or live somewhere else. And her pastor, God, I should try
Oh
to
yeah,
find.
the Bishop Jack said,
Hmm.
there's a legend that says that most hurricanes that hit this
Yeah.
country originate on the west coast of Africa, that restless
Hmm.
souls are coming to us to heal and to support our own healing. Yeah, that hit hard. I was like, oh, that was some
Yeah.
bars right there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know, really powerful just to think about, like, I don't know, just the kind of like ongoing connection that we maintain with our ancestors who, are no longer earthside. Um, and also the fact that, like, right, they need healing too. And they need to have their stories told. They need closure, I suppose, to whatever that means, from like what they experienced. And I don't know, just how that can also help heal current generations. And so, yeah, I think that the work that she's doing is really powerful, obviously, just because like these stories deserve to be told. Like, Black people have a really rich history, and unfortunately there's, a lot of bad things that happened, but even those things deserve to be told, and we deserve to be made aware of them. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I just think that like the work that I agree that like in chapter 5, especially, like the way that she kind of described her emotional and spiritual connection to the work she's doing, I think it resonated really deeply. So, yeah, I'm super excited to get into the next chapter, chapter 6, because I feel like that's when, I don't know, that's when we really start to like see in action, like what does it kind of look like for her? What does it feel like moment to moment to be experiencing this, to be interacting with like current Mozambican generations, as well as like, kind of like uncovering the truths that these people went through. So yeah, I don't know. Any
What
final
did
thoughts on
you?
chapter 5?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was curious what you thought about this sort of teaser. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if she had like a dream or some
Mm,
weird. There was that weird thing, and then she just, because I have dreams, and I don't do this, and I always say that I'm gonna do this, but she woke up and immediately like wrote down something that came to her in that dream, and it was E-way. And so she
yeah.
wrote down Eeway. And because I too will forget it immediately. Like it'll be so vivid. I'll remember every detail. And then an hour later, I have no idea what I had a dream about. But I was just curious because she
Yeah.
wrote it down. And in my mind, it's going to come back
Mm-hmm.
up because
Mm-hmm.
this is a writer and a storyteller. And
Right.
so I was sitting there trying to think about like, where is she gonna see this like inscrawled somewhere when she's scuba
Mm.
diving on a ship? Like it feels like something, and I just don't know where it's gonna come back into play. But I was just curious what you might have thought about that little
Yeah.
teaser.
Yeah, I definitely I feel like it is gonna come back, and I feel like we are gonna revisit it. I'm curious if it's like a Mozambican word or an African word that maybe she like doesn't have the translation for yet, or yeah, like if it's gonna show. I know that it's gonna come up in her work somehow, and I don't know. That is really interesting because she mentions that it sounds like someone was whispering it to her, almost as if it was a spirit.
Yeah,
That was kind of like, yeah, like really whispering this to her. So it obviously carries significant meaning, and it's so interesting to think that like, I don't, yeah, it's like I don't know if like this word has lived in the recesses of her brain somewhere subconsciously, and it like resurfaced now, or what, but it's interesting that like she probably will encounter this word again, and to think that she's never heard it before, and it's just showing up. I don't know. That's like it gives me chills a little bit to
yeah,
I don't know,
yeah.
think
I
about
love
that.
horror. I love like creepy horror, scary stuff. So like that. That would have been like, let's go. I'm ready to get out of here. I'm so excited.
Yeah. What's next? What are you trying to tell
Bring it
me?
on, ghost. Bring it on,
Yeah.
ghost. I'm ready for you.
Yeah. And it sounds like she has like I don't know, like I do feel like she has like a deep it sounds like she has like a just really strong, like is very grounded spiritually. And so I feel like if
Yeah.
anybody is able to hear the ancestors whispering to them, it sounds
Yeah.
like she probably has a strong line, a strong connection. But yeah, yeah, we will find out. We didn't find out in chapter 6, spoiler alert, but I
Yeah.
know we're gonna find out. um, but cool. So yeah, chapter 6, we are finally in Africa. She's
Bottom
talking about her
time.
time. Yes, bottom time, part 2. So this is the first chapter in part 2. And yeah, I think you had an interesting kind of thought on like you had kind of a thought on like descent, bottom time, and ascent, and like how that kind of like maps to her overall journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The way when we were looking at just the names of these sections, since there aren't actual chapter names, um, I kind of just figured that this was the heart of of the actual being underground, the
Right.
scuba diving, but
Yeah.
also kind of getting to the bottom of the research,
Hmm.
and the work that they're trying to do. Initially we had to she had to get to this place. Um, so yeah,
Mm.
bottom time, it's let's get under the water. All that
Yeah.
training, all these months and months of training and getting certified and getting
Yeah.
comfortable is putting it into action. Although
Yeah.
I feel like there wasn't much of her in the water. That was the interesting part
This
about
ch-
this chapter.
Not this chapter, no. So yeah, she's in Mozambique. She is going to be in Africa. She mentioned for 3 months. So Mozambique is just the first country that she's traveling to, and I don't actually know how long she was in Mozambique, but based on the chapter, it sounds like maybe she probably mentions it somewhere, but I can't quite recall. But it felt like maybe about, I don't know. I'm over here like it felt like a week, but I think a lot
Yeah.
happens. A lot happens, so I really don't know. I would have to dive back in, but either way, she's in Mozambique for an extended period of time, and she's working on this slave wrecks project team with a bunch of experts from different institutions, different universities, the National Park Service, different museums. So it's just a huge group of archaeologists, researchers, documentarians, all those folks, and she is one of them. And it sounds like, at least for this portion of the project, her role is to kind of just be sort of a historian, someone who like
Mhm.
kind of like documents what's happening, has conversations with people, documents their experiences, and just kind of puts it all together and helps keep a record of this work that they're doing. Um, and so when they get to Mozambique, they end up on this island called Ilha de Mocambique. Maybe
Mhm.
yes, Ilha de
Yeah,
Mocambique.
get that
Oh,
Portuguese on.
goodness gracious.
You got that. I'll just
Il,
do it even worse.
yeah. Ilha de Mocambique, a tiny island. I think she said it was like less than
2
two
miles.
miles long.
Yeah.
But it has a very rich history. Mozambique was colonized by the Portuguese in the 1500s, it sounds like. And this island was the capital of the Portuguese colonization in East Africa from 1507 to 1898. And so very rich history. And a big part of that history is that it was the center of the transatlantic slave trade for the Portuguese. So something like over 500,000 African people were trafficked on this island. And yeah, she talks about how the team is split up into smaller groups. So there's a team of people that is working with local people to train them as scuba divers, which I thought was really cool. So they're empowering the local people to kind of continue
Yeah.
doing this work and this research on their own. And I think it's really great that, they're empowering them to be the discoverers and the storytellers of their own history, which is, as we know, historically, especially in places like America, it's just not how it's gone. She
Yeah.
mentions in an earlier chapter, I think Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie has this quote that says that, oh man, I'm going to mess it up, but basically that the lion, until the lion can write stories, all the stories are told from the perspective of the hunter or something like that. But basically saying
Yeah.
that, like, people don't get empowered to tell their own stories about their own history. So I thought that that was really cool. Um, and then, yeah, there's another team that is kind of continuing to do some exploration of this slave ship, the Sao Jose, in the water. So they are mowing the lawn, which we mentioned in a previous chapter. They basically like go back and forth over sections of the ocean and see if they can find any anomalies or anything that's kind of like sticking out, to identify a wreck that might have happened in that area. And then there's another team that's excavating a terrestrial site, and they're specifically kind of trying to work on this tunnel that goes, I think, from a church into a courtyard of a private residence, where African people were literally funneled in secret along this tunnel. And then, they exit this courtyard and they head onto a ship. And we can talk about that a little bit later. And then there's another team that's of just museum curators and historians who are kind of working to rewrite, or maybe not rewrite, but update the narrative that has been told about Mozambican history and make it a more inclusive history about the slave trade. So,
Yeah, because
yeah,
they don't talk about the slave trade part of it. It's
right.
like, let's just whitewash the history to make it look good like we're doing now. So,
Yeah, yeah, basically. And then yeah, they're gonna meet with a Makua chieftain at the end, and they're gonna share any findings that they come up with. Um, so yeah, that's kind of like a big summary of what happens. There's so much that goes on in this chapter, but like, I
yeah.
guess we'll just try to kind of like I don't know. I think it'd be interesting to maybe just kind of, rather than go through it chronologically, just kind of talk about some of the things that really stood out to us. And one of the things that stuck out to me kind of like right away was when Tara arrives on this island, she kind of expects to immediately feel embraced and at home. But she has a different experience, and I think that really surprises her. And I think part of it is just like maybe the feeling of just right, like the reality of being in this space that's unfamiliar, where she doesn't know the language,
Yeah.
doesn't really know the people. But then she mentions like that there are like these small children on the island that, beg her and other foreigners for money. But she notices that, anyone who was like born in Africa or Mozambique, who's like kind of native to that continent or that country, the children leave them alone. And yeah, I don't know. I thought that was really
Yeah. And
interesting.
that
Yeah.
was like almost her first experience. Like once they got to the residence
Mhm.
and, it's like the kids knew come out and
Right.
it was like mostly boys. Actually, I mean, like she didn't see any girls at that point and was sitting there
Hmm.
wondering where all the girls were. And then all these kids running up to her. And it's interesting because there was kind of like two perspectives. I feel like there were two different people in the book who kind
Hmm.
of gave her different perspectives. And one is like, those kids are fine. They got food at home. They just know that they're going to play you. Um, but then some of them were like, well, I feel like somebody else had a different idea, was kind of like, yeah, but they don't, they know
Yeah.
that you all are coming into their place and like you kind of almost like you should give back. And I know, like she had this nickname for the one because she had one particular little
Yeah.
boy who was like her, I guess, maybe. I forgot what she called him, but
You called him
I don't know if it
Sly
was like
Eyes.
sleepy. Yeah, I was like sleepy eyes. Yeah, sly eyes. And and it was just so funny to me because, you know, I get I get that I feel like Tara wanted to still give these kids something, even
Hmm.
knowing if it's a
She was
scam
getting
or whatever you
played.
want to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think there's something when you're a Black American, especially, and you're coming into a place that you wanted to feel like home in
Hmm.
this space. And it's like, and almost like, I don't even know if it's better in Africa or better in America, but it has this perception of like, well, I'm the American and I have all these privileges
Hmm.
and this is my home. I should give back to these kids. Like, it's like I need to feel connected in some way. And almost like helping these kids is helping that connection that I want to feel to this place. And so I'm honestly surprised. I mean, we saw what happened towards the end of the chapter where wanted, she finally
Yeah.
just decided, like, this is what I want to do. I don't
Hmm.
care about the stigma. I don't care about this. It was something that I think she needed to do. And then it was kind of
Hmm.
sad that it went unfulfilled
Yeah.
because she was given sort of that precursor information that made her hesitate.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely like, I think in that moment, like I was like reading that, I was like, I understand. I feel like I totally can understand like the conflict that she must be facing. Cause like, I've traveled to other countries that I guess are less, I don't even know what the right word is, but I've definitely traveled to others.
Impoverished.
Yeah, like I've traveled to other cities in other countries that, experience more poverty than America. And like even then I'm like, I know that this cab ride shouldn't cost $20. Like I know it should really be like
Yeah.
5 or 10, but like I don't know. And maybe this is like not the right way to think about it, but it's like I also know that like, the value of an American dollar, at least at this point, is like much greater than like, the
Mhm.
value of like pesos or whatever. Right now, today. Who knows what it'll be
Yeah.
by the end of this year, but
As of this recording
yeah.
in
Um,
2025.
but yeah, I don't know. It's like I know I shouldn't be spending this much on it, but I also do recognize that like I just have more money, and I don't have a lot of money. Like by American standards, I'm getting by. But I'm
Yeah.
not, loaded, but like by the standards of like this country that I'm in, like I can afford to like maybe pay a little bit extra and like, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I just maybe it's myself hoping to invite good karma into my life, but I just feel like as long as I'm not getting like scammed like just egregiously, I'm okay with
Yeah.
paying a little bit extra or, sparing a little bit extra. Um because I do recognize that privilege. And I think that, like, yeah, like you said, I think that she just kind of felt like, I think it was this woman named Giselle who was on the trip with her. But yeah, just kind of mentioning that it's complicated and it's not as straightforward as like, oh, they have something, so just don't give them anything. It's like they're probably
Yeah.
still pretty poor. And they probably still like Tara mentions in the book, recognize that like Americans have certain privileges, black Americans get certain privileges. We want some of that. We want to experience some of those small luxuries. So yeah, I don't know. I definitely respect
Yeah.
her and I feel like I would probably have carried myself the same way. It's interesting to note also that like the two, like the woman and I guess Tara also being a woman, like the two women are like have like a more sympathetic approach and they're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I think, I recognize that it's a little bit more nuanced and a little bit more complicated. And the man that she talks to is like, don't give him nothing. I don't know. I just thought that that was like an interesting note.
Yeah, the
But
masculine versus feminine energy and
yeah,
how that impacts the decisions and how you navigate
yeah,
different spaces. Yeah.
totally. I guess one other small thing that kind of stood out to me when she said this, like, so at the top of this episode, I kind of mentioned that, I really want to go to Africa. And that part of what I would really like to do is to like take some sort of ancestry test and figure out, what countries my ancestors come from and then visit those countries. And it was just like a reminder to me, like it was kind of like grounding to me because it was like, I think there's some part of me that would hope that like if I did travel to these countries, I would be like embraced and I'd be like, I found my people, love me, embrace me, take me in. And it's like this reminder, this humbling reminder that like, right, I am still American. I'm
American.
still
Yeah.
not I'm not African.
You don't get an
And
African card just because you go to Africa and you got dark skin.
right,
That ain't how it works.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
that was
And
so
these
sad. But
people,
that was yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and then
they
she
wouldn't
said
recognize me.
the little boy does not look at her as African.
Yeah.
As any level of African American, like you're
Yeah.
American. I don't see that I see that American clothes, that American cologne, perfume, like
Right.
that
That
is I
American
don't
dollar.
yeah. It's not like
Yeah.
as soon as you come in, there's like this skin folk thing that just automatically resonates, whether it's adults or kids.
Yeah.
And obviously, as soon as you open your mouth, they know you're not African. Even if you could present as African, because I do think in some cases that is possible. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was interesting. And then just kind of the conversation about, and I don't know how where this came into the chapter, but talking
Mm-hmm.
about Pan-Africanism
Mm-hmm.
and how people with certain skin tones will have a commonality. So
Mm-hmm.
it's supposed to work together and we're supposed to come together and this is how we connect because we don't have those direct African roots. So
Mm-hmm.
having to create something to feel that connection almost.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I found the quote, but right, like she's talking to this man, Ibrahima Thial,
Oh yeah.
who Yeah, who lives in Senegal, and does a lot of research in archaeology. And she's talking to him about Pan-Africanism. And I think that she kind of has this very like, we are all one, like, I should be able to kind of go anywhere on the continent where there are Black people and sort of feel at home. And he's
Mhm.
telling her, like, basically, I mean, he says, like, I don't know that African Americans like you will ever find a home in Africa. I don't think Africa is your home geographically. And it's just kind of like this reality check of like,
Come on, like a gut check.
yeah, and it's like, he says too much has happened, quite frankly, and you're too removed from this place. And I think one of the things, like what he's trying to say, I feel like it sounds harsh, but I think what he's trying to say is like, not only is Africa like foreign to Americans because like
Mhm.
there's just like obviously like the geographical distance and then there's the distance of time. But also like to the Africans that live here, it is just a totally different place than it was before slavery and before the transatlantic slave trade. So yeah, I don't know. But then he kind of just tries to like, I think he tries to like, just kind of give some hope and some optimism of saying like, Pan-Africanism still exists in that there is still some commonality, but we kind of have an opportunity to redefine what our connection to our homeland is and what our connection is across the globe. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't know. I thought that was all really interesting and definitely good food for thought. There's still so much that I have to think about any of that. Like I feel like I'm still like kind of marinating on that and thinking about what all that means for me. Um
Yeah, especially as we both hope to go one day and, you know, feeling like my people descended from here, like they did.
mhm.
And yes, it is hundreds and hundreds of years removed, but I still feel like to some degree, I'd almost feel more connected there than I would
Mhm.
on any of the streets of St. Louis where I grew up.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um I think another thing that was kind of interesting um was she's talking to um there's someone that she's talking to. I don't remember their name, but this person gave her a tour of Stone Town. Um,
Hmm.
and God, I wish I could find the exact section in the book, but she's kind of just talking about like what I think. And initially, she's like, Stone Town seems so quiet. There's no one around. All of these buildings that are so bright and colorful,
Where
but
are
I'm not
the
really
Black
seeing any people.
Africans?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing any people. And then he kind of goes on this tour and he sort of shows her, I guess, the real island where the native Makua people live and,
Mhm.
their community, and there's children laughing and playing. She can smell food. And she sees this like village, this community of people kind of tucked behind the foreground of Stone Town that everyone is presented with. Um, and it's dilapidated and definitely worn down. There's like sewage issues. There's, concerns about sanitation, but she can see that this is like where the richness and the life and the people are. And at one point, I think they start talking about just kind of like the future of this country and how there's just maybe so much untapped potential. I wish, God, I'm trying to find it, but
Yeah. Was
anyways,
this the
there's
part where she was like curious about how people, why can't we teach them how to build their communities up so they can create an ecosystem of making money and profiting
Mhm.
from their own communities? Because that was interesting, and
Yeah.
I don't know if he was questioning like, well, you think you need to come in and fix people. Americans always think they need to come in and like fix something, and who's to
Mhm.
say it's broken, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. Um, she's just like, they could restore these buildings. They could build this, they could rebuild their community. And the tour guide's like, they don't know how to restore the buildings, and she's like, but they can learn. And she's coming in with this optimism and this like
We'll create a
forceful though,
program.
like
Create a program. That's what we do. We create programs and we fix things.
And he's like, we're good. Like, we're fine. We're doing okay. Like, and she just, I think she just, yeah, feels like she wants to kind of debate him and be like, you're not fine. Like, let me tell you all the ways that you need to be like fixed. And she catches herself and she's like, right, like I can see my Americanism and I can see my indoctrination and how I'm trying to kind of like force capitalism on these people. And yeah, I think she's kind of like maybe a little bit embarrassed or even disappointed in herself that like, right, like it's just how she kind of comes in with this presumption that these people kind of need her help and that they should abide by the American way of doing things to kind of like improve in the ways that she thinks they need to improve. So I don't know. I thought that that was, yeah, I don't know. I thought that that was just really interesting and really eye opening. And I could see myself maybe having a similar kind of experience of like, oh, well, let me just tell you like all the things that you need and all the ways that I can fix you. And that's just some people are like, don't need that. You
Yeah.
know, I don't know. Yeah. I don't
One
know.
thing I was curious about when I'm reading stuff, I'm always like also on the internet. And, you know, this won't get addressed in the book by any means. So that's why I'm bringing it up. But as we're looking at all the different parties involved with this project, do we think this project still continues? Not her portion of it, but the SWP. You know, because of course I have the link and I'm gonna link it in the show notes, but I went to the Slave Bricks Project website on the, you know, the National Museum of American History. So I was like, I
Yeah.
wonder, are they diving anywhere? What's still going on? Like because we know funding is getting pulled left and right from all of the things. No one is not impacted because so much money comes from the government. But
Yeah.
you know, I guess the project started in 2014. And so you can read a lot about it and the partners that are involved. We saw some of those partners mentioned, like Diving with a Purpose. But I don't know. It feels like I just want to know. I want to know what's happening with this project. So if
Yeah.
anybody knows, like comment, like let us know. Cause
Yeah.
I just want to know if it's still going on. Cause there are like features, like recent news features. But the news features are like, I think there was one from 2025. Everything, it was like December 2025. Um, oh no, I don't know. Wait, we haven't hit December 2025. So yeah, I don't think there's any like recent articles. I think 2024.
Huh.
Yeah, I think they just put the wrong year because oh no, this is January
Okay.
2025. So
Yeah. And that was the last, like you haven't, so it doesn't definitively say, oh, this is no longer
no.
happening. But
No, yeah,
there haven't
nothing
been,
says that the initiative is done.
yeah.
Obviously, this website makes it very clear that it's kind of still going on.
Right. Okay.
But I don't, I don't know. I don't know. I just
Yeah.
am curious if there's like actual dives happening like right now, or people out there.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go look them up on Instagram. Everybody's got Instagram, right? There's got to be
Yeah.
a
I,
diving. I just want to know. That's all.
yeah. I can't imagine. I mean, it definitely sounded like, you know, I think, like you said, and even maybe prior to this administration, like that funding was just something that they were constantly trying to secure. But I can't imagine that. I mean, the work started before her, so I can't. I don't think that it ended with her. But yeah, I hope it's still going on. I can't imagine that it just sort of ended. But I guess, yeah, if you know anything about this, especially if you happen to be like, you know, a scuba diver or an archaeologist and have like, you know, a more in-depth knowledge of this work, like, please let us know what's going on. Um, but yeah, now I'm really curious and I definitely want to like dig deeper to find out because, yeah, I don't know. It just seems so important. And
Yeah.
That's actually what year
Yeah,
was
and I
this book
definitely need to go
published?
back to. I really need to go back to DC so I can go to the museum
Mm,
because I think some of this work has been updated in the museum and
yeah.
presented in that space. So we definitely got to have a we gotta have a Books and Boulders field trip to DC
Oh my God, please. Because
just for
like
this episode.
I was at this museum like just last summer and I had no idea about any of this and I would have absolutely been looking out for it in the museum if I had known.
Yeah,
Because I don't know, I think it's so cool. Like when I think about museums, I don't know, like I my mind always goes to like the past and things that have happened before. And I don't really think about museums documenting work that's currently happening in the present. So yeah, I don't know. I think it would be really interesting to kind of learn how they're keeping people up to date with things that are going on in the moment. But hopefully all that stuff is still there because literally our administration is targeting the National Museum of African American
I know.
History and trying to remove artifacts and it's awful. But yeah. Um yeah, I
One other thing that stood out to me, and I'm
mhm.
sorry, but
No, please.
it was we always talk about this, especially like, when we talk about Black Panther, but the colonizers.
Mm,
I'd like to talk a little bit about the colonizers because it's really interesting to me. Because I have a friend, or acquaintance, someone I knew for a long time, and it was actually my first roommate when I
mm,
moved to Brooklyn, New York,
mhm,
and her family, and actually I think she was born in Angola,
hmm.
and I'm almost positive she came to America when she was 4, something, a young kid. And as I was reading this, because I never understood why the language that they spoke was Portuguese,
Mhm,
but also didn't ask. And so
mhm,
it was because I was like, I know like I've had Kenyan friends, and I know there's all these different languages, native languages, but I never realized of the depths of colonization that the Portuguese did in that area or had on that area. And I don't know why that struck me because I was like, that's why she spoke Portuguese. And I was like, oh, okay. And again,
yeah,
that's not history. Like, I don't know straight up African history. Like, we don't
yeah,
learn the history of what's happened in Africa other than slaves were taken from there and brought to America.
right.
And again, even that is a little watered down, but it was just wild that it said, and I wrote this down because it just hit me, that Portuguese ruled Mozambique for 575 years,
Wow.
then proceeded to have a 16-year civil war before, I guess,
Wow.
getting their independence. Like, that is wild. That is
Yeah.
like, like, that's a long time. I'm just like, it's just,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. A 16-year war is also a really long time. Yeah, that is Gosh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess
Yeah.
we have our own levels of colonization in America. Like, it's just so much, but it's just wild to me that people just walk in and say, I want that. Like, they're a little kid in a candy store. I want that. So that's mine now.
Yeah.
And then all the history that's lost. Like, what is the native language? They don't even talk a lot about language. Like, I mean, obviously the native language is Portuguese because 500 years, like,
Right.
that's what you got.
But what were they
I'm sure,
speaking before? Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure that language is, maybe it's not lost, but I don't know. I just get into my like, make Google and learn. I need to know more because
Yeah.
it's like what the book is saying. There's always more to a story, because you can't capture everything. But
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, she kind of talks about, yeah, just how the story, she gets into the stories of how, these museums kind of only really talk about the Portuguese aspects of this
Mhm.
history and only really acknowledge, um, kind of like their stories. And she's like, all this time, you know, that African people were a part of this, and how is there just not more recognition of like their contributions to the culture of Mozambique now, and yeah, the ways that African culture has shaped this country. So yeah, I don't know, it's real. And it makes me, hearing you say that kind of just makes me think about, I mean, we're American, so like we never really had a deep connection to our African ancestry to begin with. But it is just interesting. And it also kind of makes me think about like, right, like just the ways in which America kind of like is so hesitant to acknowledge the contributions that Black people have made to American culture.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like maybe on Reddit or somewhere I've just kind of heard this narrative circulating that like people are like, oh, Black people don't have culture, Black Americans don't have culture. And I'm like, I don't know. I've never actually heard anyone say that to me, but that is a wild
Yeah.
that's such a wild thing to say because like what? Like African American culture is so, it is so significant. Like it's just we
It's so significant that it's constantly being co-opted
yeah,
by
all the
other
time.
non-Black people.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
that I think about one of my favorite examples is like bye Felicia. Like you do you remember when that was like a thing? Like and everyone would just be like bye Felicia. Like and
yeah.
I was just like, half of y'all have no idea where this even came from. Like you don't even know that this came from Friday. Like you don't, and you like I could quote Friday line for line. Like I'm so annoying when that movie comes on. But it was like it would make me mad because it was just like you just taking stuff and saying bye Felicia. You don't even know who Felicia is.
Yes. What Felicia went
Anyway,
through in the flood.
oh
It's
my
our
god, please
culture.
don't get me started. But yeah, I don't know. It is just very interesting to think about. Yeah, that all. I don't know. I don't even think that really stuck with me as much because this chapter was just so, it was so dense and it had so much to it. But that definitely, I don't know, a lot, a lot to unpack there. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah. Okay, I'll
And
just the last
then
thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, no, go ahead. No, I'm good.
Yeah, I think one of the last things that I kind of wanted to touch on was just how she talks about like kind of like visiting the terrestrial team and seeing some of the work, the excavation work they're doing, and how she explores this tunnel that they are excavating, and how this tunnel leads from a church into like the courtyard of a private residence, and how there's this door, and so Africans are kind of just funneled from the church through this tunnel into the courtyard, and then they end up at this door, and she calls it like a literal door of no return, where they go from this courtyard, they open the door, they're looking at this beach, and then they are boarded onto this slave ship. um and it's the last time that they'll see some of their loved ones, and they have no idea what their future is going to look like. And it was interesting to me to think about this kind of like juxtaposition between, just the beauty. And I think she kind of mentions it, but like the beauty of being on this beach surrounded by like crystal clear waters and like probably white sands and gorgeous trees. And I'm sure it was just like a gorgeous landscape to be looking at, but then also the terror that these people must be feeling to have been in captivity already for so long, and then to be like boarded onto the slave ship where they have no, we're not going to see their family anymore, they're not going to see their loved ones anymore, they have no idea where they're going, what their future is going to look like, they have no autonomy, no control, no power over any of that. And I don't know, it just, I thought that that was just such a striking juxtaposition. And I thought, I feel so privileged to be able to like really enjoy nature and to not necessarily have that baggage, at least at the forefront of my mind,
Yeah.
to have to think about all of that. But I don't know,
Yeah,
it's just
it's like the
interesting.
merging of beauty and darkness, or light and darkness, like something that's
Yeah.
so beautiful, but that could be a trigger for someone who, this is not a beautiful sight for me to see this beautiful
Yeah.
landscape and get on this boat. I mean, I think that's the same. I've heard people talk about, you know, if we connect things back to climbing, which I think is always possible.
Yeah.
But just thinking about going climbing and having this rope and the connection of ropes
Hmm.
in American society and how that might make someone feel. Imagine hiring a guide and you're going out. And if you did actually grow up in the Jim Crow era, in the time when people were disappearing and people were found hung from trees, like, could you imagine being like, I'm going to go hire this white guy to take me out and he's got a bunch of ropes and we're
I'm
going to
just
go in the
dangling
middle of
from
the
the end of
woods.
his rope. Yeah.
Like, who's going to go? It's so, I don't
Yeah.
know how, like, I kind of made that weird connection, but
No, it's not
yeah.
weird. I get it. Yeah.
But when you describe it, it's like, oh, a door to the sand, to the beach, to the beauty, to the water.
Yeah.
But then thinking about where that door leads to and what the end result was. I mean, the end result was never positive. It wasn't like, oh, some people made it back and there was retribution. Once you're gone, you're
Yeah.
gone. You're either at the bottom of that ocean or you're on some other country, because that's where it ended up, whether it was
Yeah.
America or Europe or some other country that, essentially received these slaves. And that's
Yeah.
where their legacy continued. If they were
Yeah.
fortunate enough to even make it to these other places.
Right. And it's like, I mean, it's also like, it's not like the journey itself was nice. Like they're in cramped
Oh,
quarters,
yeah.
like stuffed under the bottom of a ship. Like, like, I mean, I can't, yeah. It's
Probably
just
not
awful.
getting
Like,
fed, no food, no water, at least just enough to like make sure that the cargo that they're trying to sell is good enough to be sold. But you're
yeah,
not getting proper food. I mean, you can't sleep like that. So nothing
no.
about any of these conditions is
They're probably
pleasant.
sleeping
Like,
in their own, waste. Like,
yep.
yeah, like it's just, I, yeah. I can't even imagine, yeah, how
And this book
horrible.
kind of takes you there. Because
Yeah.
again, when we think about what did we learn in school about slavery and like very little is actually talked about. And maybe again, yes, because there's no documentation of it. I mean,
Mhm.
we don't really know. We
Right.
don't know that they were going to the bathroom by themselves or not getting fed or
Yeah.
But just having the conversations in a history class of like going through the minds of what it was like on those multi-week trips from one place, in some cases, probably leaving your family behind, if not
Mhm.
all cases. Even if your family was with you, nothing about what could have been going through the minds of that person or people is really discussed.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen Birth of a Nation, the newer one with uh
Oh, I
Nat
did.
Turner.
Yes. Yes.
I like got halfway through it and I was like, I can't do this. I just
I
remember
saw it
there
in the
being a
movie
scene.
theater.
Oh God. Oh God.
Yeah, it was a date night.
Oh God.
On a
What?
date. I'm a weirdo. Because I'm certain I was the one who wanted to see that movie.
Oh my goodness.
Followed by seafood. Gotta have some time legs after you see recommendation. I mean, all I remember was being so angry. I was so angry. I was ready to burn everything
Japanese
down.
crab like
I needed to take out my frustrations on something. Oh my God.
oh yeah, I don't know. I made it to just trigger warning, but a scene where I I think this was in that movie. He was being force fed and he didn't want to eat. So they like took his teeth out of his mouth and then like shoved food into, and like you said, I don't know what the documentation is on any of this. Like, I'm assuming that this stuff happened because I feel like I've seen enough,
Yeah.
I've seen this scenario enough to feel like this is probably something that like actually happened. But like, I won't even say any more about what I remember from that scene. And maybe that wasn't even Birth of a Nation. Maybe that was a different movie, but it was all very fucked up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, well, that's sad. I don't know.
Maybe it gets
awful.
lighter. I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I think that was one of the last things that really, really struck me, was just thinking about like, yeah, just thinking about like that juxtaposition and how like, even today, like I'm fortunate to not have experienced that. And I feel like I'm fortunate to not necessarily have that kind of like emotional trauma. But I think that it's still understandable if people, even today, like don't feel super comfortable, like going out into the woods or going out to like, I don't know. Like, I think that it is understandable, kind of like with all of this in context, uh, that there are some Black people who are still somewhat skeptical of like being in nature and like spending time in natural spaces, because unfortunately, like this this experience of like the door of no return and like leaving this courtyard to be on the beach, to be led onto the slave ship, that's one experience. But like, Black people were hunted down in the woods, chased by dogs in the woods, like would literally drown themselves and their babies in rivers and water to avoid, to keep them from being a part of slavery. Like, so I don't know. It's just really interesting to kind of explore. I think that amidst all of that, there is like a beautiful history and a beautiful relationship that Black people have with nature, especially prior to the transatlantic slave trade. But yeah, I don't know. I just think that there's just so much darkness and ugliness that Black people had to pair with nature. And so it is understandable, kind of like some of the skepticism and hesitation that people have. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the outside is free, but is it? It's there's a lot that comes with it. A lot. I mean, and now, I'm starting to see more and more stories about people being accosted while outside. It's clearly nothing like this, but even an inkling of that is like, how do you have this connection with nature if there's always this potential for fear, for some sort of discomfort? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
but they head out. They head out after that, and they're leaving. They're leaving this island, and I don't know where they're headed to actually, but I guess the next chapter we're gonna be in a new place. Yeah. And it did feel like about a good 5 to 7 days, because she pretty much was like the next day and then the next day.
Right.
So
yeah. And I know it mentions that she's going to South Africa and Senegal next. I don't know exactly which one is immediately next, but we will find out when we return with chapters. Are we going to do 7, 8, and 9?
Yep.
Okay, sweet. So 7, 8, and 9.
7, 8, and 9. Hopefully she gets in the water.
Yeah. All that training.
I mean, I know. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because it was a lot of like obviously documenting and storytelling, but I feel like I hope she's gonna get in the water too at some point.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It'll be very interesting, I'm sure, because I'm like, she did all of this to go scuba diving. So I don't know. We'll see exactly what all of that training leads up to. I'm very excited to get into it, because already there's just so much to discuss. Like, I feel we could have probably spent another hour or two really digging into so much of what she is talking about. And what I love about this book is that, we're reading a story, but there's also so much of it that resonates on like a deeper emotional level. So yeah, I'm really excited to learn more about her journey, and I'm so grateful that she did this work and is telling the story. And I hope you all are enjoying following along with us. If you're reading, I hope you're enjoying the book yourself.
Join our book club.
Yeah.
Visit the website, linked in the show notes. Join our book club. And yeah, we, maybe one day we'll recreate this book and experiences. And so we want y'all to come along with us. So, yeah, you can find us on all the things. So thank you for listening, and we will see you in the next one.
We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Books and Boulders, an adventure podcast produced by First Outdoor Company for climbers, readers, and everyone in between. Subscribe now and join the BB Book Club.